Welcome to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers with Linda Prio. Will it be possible to remain in my home as I age? Do I feel safe in my home? How do I figure out how much support I will need when my health needs start to change? What if I decide to move into a community instead? Which community will meet my needs now and in the future? Who will play a role in helping me with decision making? Do you ask yourself these same questions? Aging in Place Strategies and Answers can help you gain practical knowledge that will help you create your own Aging in Place roadmap. If you are already a care partner, a power of attorney, or in crisis mode with your Aging in Place strategy, you will learn what you need to know that you don't know. For over 20 years, I have been marketing Aging in Place services to clients and educating families and healthcare professionals in how to put aging in place strategies into place. When you utilize aging in place, you are allowed to choose where you want to live and make those decisions so that you can retain your quality of life. Welcome back to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers. Before we begin today's podcast, I want to give you a quick fact list about Parkinson's. And just bear in mind as I'm giving these statistics, they're actually changing moment by moment. But I do want you to know that there is a prevalence of Parkinson's. It's not just a small disease with a small segment of society that has it. And in the U.S. alone, this number is expected to increase to 1.2 million by 2030. But worldwide, it is underestimated, but they think there are probably 10 million people who are suffering with Parkinsonian symptoms at current count. There are over 90,000 people diagnosed with Parkinson's disease each year in the U.S., and it's important for you to understand that it is the second most common and the fastest growing neurodegenerative disease. So it is entirely possible that while you personally may not suffer from this disease, that you know somebody well, or there is somebody in your family that has been diagnosed with Parkinson's. So it's important to listen today. We find that most people are diagnosed with Parkinson's disease that are usually 60 years or older, but about 5 to 10% are diagnosed before age 50. And it is thought that men are 1.5 times more likely to have Parkinson's disease than women. And the cause is chronic neurological disorder that causes a progressive loss of motor control and non-motor symptoms like depression and anxiety. And at present, there is no cure. The cost of treating Parkinson's disease in the U.S. is estimated to be $14 billion annually, plus an additional $6.3 billion in indirect costs. The number of cases is expected to double by 2040. So in today's podcast, we are going to focus on how to live well with Parkinson's. We know that the disease exists. We know that there is a prevalence. We know that there's an increase. But today, I want our focus to be on how to live well with Parkinson's by celebrating everyday victories. And I also want you to learn how to connect with a Davis Phinney Parkinson's ambassador who can relate to you and the Parkinson's disease and answer your personal question. Now, my guest today is Karen Frank, and she is an ambassador for the Davis Phinney Parkinson's Foundation. And we chatted last week, and she told me overwhelmingly that it is so important that if you have Parkinson's to get connected with Parkinson's organizations because of the knowledge and the support that they can give to you, to your loved ones. But today, we're going to learn more about another organization that's helping those with Parkinson's in a unique way, the Davis Phinney Foundation. So, Karen, say hello to my listeners.
Hi, everybody. I'm really grateful to be here today with you.
Well, I am thankful to have you, and I know we're going to share a lot of information. So, to my listeners, stay tuned with us because we have a lot for you today. Now, a word from our sponsor.
Are you looking for resources on senior living? Check out guideforseniorliving.com for our free online senior resource guide to find senior housing, care, and community connections. Start searching now at guide4seniorliving.com. That's guideforseniorliving.com to find the contact information for senior housing, care, and community connections.
Now let's return to the podcast. Now, I'm honored, of course, Karen, to know you and to have you with me today. And so I'm going to ask you to share a brief bio about yourself, how you got connected to the Davis Phinney Foundation, and then your personal connection with those who live with Parkinson's disease on a daily basis.
Okay. Well, thank you. I am currently 54 years old. Actually, today is my birthday, so that's great.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. I was one of those people who was diagnosed with Parkinson's under the age of 50. I received my diagnosis when I was 47. It was not a happy gift, but it happened. My father had Parkinson's, his mother had Parkinson's, and her sister had Parkinson's. And I believe beyond that, there may have been more. I'm one of the people who has a genetic variant for Parkinson's, and that has increased my risk of having this disease. I used to be a nurse anesthetist. I worked here at a big, large academic medical center in anesthesia. And I was at the peak of my career, really getting very good at what I did for a living and enjoyed very much. And I had my first symptom of Parkinson's was severe precipitous anxiety, which came years before I developed motor symptoms, which initially presented as a tremor, although it has progressed to other symptoms of Parkinson's. So that was really difficult for me. I kind of had this perception that I was sliding for some reason in my career, and I didn't understand why. And so when I first got diagnosed, my neurologist said, you'll work another 10 years. And that is not what happened to me. I had a lot of complications from the treatment, and I'm left-handed. My Parkinson's is on the left side, and the nature of my job, I just could not continue to do.
Right.
And I eventually became involved in Parkinson's advocacy because my father was very dedicated to Parkinson's advocacy. He was a hero to me. I looked up to him, definitely a daddy's girl there, but he set the example and paved the way. And I started on that path pretty quickly. My father used to love to ski, and he skied with Parkinson's for over 16 years and really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed that with him. I was going to a Parkinson's support group locally, and I met someone who told me there was a ski retreat in Breckenridge, Colorado for people with Parkinson's. It was very affordable, and you could go and stay in a cabin with other people with Parkinson's and ski. And that included an instructor and volunteers to protect you when you were skiing, and yoga and meals and all this. It was wonderful. And when I was there, I met several people who were on the board of the Davis Phinney Foundation. By that time, I was already running a support group in my home community for people with young onset Parkinson's. And because of my nursing background and the fact that I really had nothing to do, and I was like, this is not okay for a 47-year-old woman, I just began filling my life. And naturally, I think because of my nursing background and the fact that I was also a caregiver to my father, that was soothing to me and helpful to others. And I just began getting involved. And one of the women who is on the board of the Davis Phinney Foundation recommended me, told me about the ambassador program, and actually recommended that I be an ambassador for the Davis Phinney Foundation, which happened about a year after my diagnosis. So I have been with them for since 2019, and I've loved every minute of it.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing all that information and being so transparent. As Karen and I do our podcast today, she already told me, she said, one of my Parkinson's symptoms is that sometimes I get a little froggy and I cough. And I said, no problem. We will work with that. And I'm just so grateful for all the effort that she is pouring forth to expose the fact that there is young onset, Parkinson's, that there is a genetic relationship with Parkinson's, and to share how this foundation that she got connected to is just has different elements to it that may resonate with you today. So I'm thankful for her willingness to be with us. So I met Karen at another Parkinson event, and a gentleman that was assisting her gave me a manual. And I'd never seen anything like that before. I can vouch that and be honest to my listeners that I do not know everything there is about Parkinson's, but I had never seen a manual like Every Victory Counts. And he said, you can have one. And I said, I don't have Parkinson's. It doesn't matter. You're an educator. You take this manual. So I did. And he said the foundation provides this manual for free. So it's already in its 6th edition. So Karen, tell us about this manual and your involvement with it and what you would like my listeners to know.
So the Every Victory Counts manual that Linda's referring to is actually, we have a care partner book that's geared particularly to care partners. And we also have another book, which is sort of considered the gold standard resource for people with Parkinson's. This has, and those that are taking care of them. Both books work together. And we also have a digital suite of resources available. There was so much content that we can provide, and you can only fit so much in a book.
Yes.
So we did certain things and put them in the book. We gave 30,000 of these books away last year for free, and anyone can have it. There's a way to get it, which I'll discuss, but the content of the books are tremendously wonderful, both for people caring for people with Parkinson's, our doctors and physicians. It explains everything from medications to the emotional piece about Parkinson's and how other people have learned to live well with the disease. And on that point, living well is a concept we use. We've dedicated ourselves as a foundation to helping people live well. What does that mean? It means something different for each person. And that's why we have a very broad way to support people and enhance their lives and the lives of those who are impacted by Parkinson's. Education, inspiration, and resources is a big part of what we do. And I find that the inspiration is a very important piece that we cover that a lot of other Parkinson's organizations may not touch on to the degree that we do. It's absolutely imperative because this disease will suck your hope out of your life.
Yes. Yes.
That's not necessary. Sometimes I think people feel that way because nobody has set before them another option about how to approach this disease. And sometimes we just need an introduction to what that might look like. And we do that in many ways. But this book, it's used internationally as well now. And we have a Canadian edition. We have Spanish edition. We've launched a whole program for Spanish speaking Spanish speaking people.
Yes.
And you basically can get this book online. You would go to the Davis Phinney Foundation.org is our address. But if you can't remember that, that's okay. Most people have a search bar on the computer. And if you
Yes.
just type in "Every Victory Counts," you will find us. You will land somewhere on our page. It's very easy. You just click on a button, ask what resources you want. They will actually mail it to your home. If you're someone who likes audiobooks, we have someone who's blind who needs the book, and she relies on the audio version of the book. So there's lots of ways to interact with that content.
Wonderful. And I think this is what resonated so much with me when I visited with Karen and started learning more about the Davis Phinney Foundation, is that this is the world I'm living in right now, is that we will actually all grow old. We actually all will get to a point where our health needs will change. How can we live well and age well within that? What is that going to look like individually for all of us? And just because you're older and your health needs are changing does not mean you cannot have quality of life, and that's unique for everybody. Karen and I also connected because of her mother's healthcare needs. And many of my listeners know that the company that I work for is very focused on those with dementia. And like Parkinson's, you get a dementia diagnosis and you think this is the end. This is it. But we see something different. We noticed what is possible. And there's a lot of life that's going to be lived within that diagnosis. And so changing people's point of view, educating that there is a way to live well with Parkinson's or with dementia, or even as a senior, as your health needs change. And as I'm sitting here in a boot up to my knee, because I had a little mishap this week, how do we live well? And so that's why I think we connected so well, Karen, and why I wanted you definitely to come on and talk to our listeners. So like Karen just mentioned, the Davis Phinney Foundation has expanded far beyond research to become a leading source of education and resources to help people with Parkinson's take those actions to live well. Davis Phinney was a world-renowned cyclist, and I would love for you to share more about Davis Phinney and how this new connection with the Bomarito Audi West County Gateway Cup came about. And then at the end of that, I'll kind of cue you again, but I want you listeners to be thinking about bike riding as a way to live well. So go ahead and tell us about that, about Davis Phinney, and then that new connection that you guys have as a foundation.
Absolutely. I will tell you about Davis Phinney, but you can't talk about Davis Phinney without talking about his entire family. So Davis is the most decorated cyclist in American history. He quit riding cycling competitively in 1997, and still no one has beat his record. He has 328 victories.
Wow.
Under his belt. And he, like myself, was diagnosed in his early 40s with Parkinson's disease. And his wife also was, until this year in the Olympics in Paris, the only woman to win a gold medal in the women's road race in American cycling until this year. So she held that for 40 years.
Wow.
Their son also is an Olympian and a medalist. And, there's more than just the Olympics. Davis won stage winner in the Tour de France. His son, Taylor, is married to now a woman who just won the women's race in the Tour de France. So the family is very dedicated to this athleticism. And what happened is Davis's cycling career ended about, I guess he was diagnosed about 4 years before he was needing to quit cycling, and he became a sports announcer. And 4 years after his diagnosis, he and his wife, Connie Carpenter Phinney, started the Davis Phinney Foundation. Initially, they were focused on research and how to live with Parkinson's a better quality of life. And the organization has really grown beyond that. We still fund quality of life based research, but we do so much more than that. Davis knew that living well looked different for different people, and that has grown over time. I'll give you an example. I'm not as old as everyone, but I'm in the sandwich generation, right? So I had to retire at 47. Financially, most people are not prepared for that.
Right.
I didn't know how to navigate disability. I have aging parents that I'm taking care of, and a lot of us at my age have children who are taken care of. Let's say you have someone older who has their own health problems, and they're then facing having to be a caregiver for someone living with Parkinson's. That becomes obviously challenging, but it's not just about the logistics and the details about getting care. It's about, where is your heart? What gives you joy in life? How do you deal with overcoming apathy and depression and anxiety in a meaningful way?
Mm-hmm.
I met someone recently with Parkinson's, and I will tell you a little bit more about our event at the Gateway Cup. But I met someone who used to be really into dance. I'm very knowledgeable about resources nationally and also here in the St. Louis area where I live. But when I found out she was into dance, and she was tap dancing up until about age 87, which is fantastic, and she could not dance anymore. She had trouble attending dance performances. And just getting to know her, which is also another one of our programs, and the ambassador program is having a one-on-one relationship with someone. I found out about this, and we happen to have a board member, David Leventhal, who started a program called Dance for PD. People, they have, as part of that program, there are in-person classes in various areas of the country, but they have online classes, and some of them are they're seated classes, so you can learn
Yes.
how to do ballet while seated.
Yes.
Do that communally. You can do it one-on-one. There are Zoom ballet classes that people can do. I know Zoom can be challenging for some people, but they help you through that hurdle and help you learn how to do it. And I enjoy greatly, that. And I was able to bring dance back into someone's life, and that is meaningful, because one of the things that's difficult about having a disease like this that's degenerative and pervasive and is losing things you love, not being able
Yes.
to thrive anymore. That changes your life tremendously. And there are ways around. It's not the same. I can't say, I'm not going to paint a rosy picture about everything. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna,
Right.
but we can make it better. We all have that impact. And sometimes, I have friends with Parkinson's, and they have profound issues and challenges. And I can't make those things go away, but I can bring other things into their life that make it better for them. And
Yes.
some people, it's financial, spiritual, um, artistic, maybe it's community. This disease can be very isolating for caregivers and for people living with Parkinson's. We see that a lot. And, connecting in some way with a community, a resource, a person, we believe in that. And no one can do this alone. I mean, they try. It's not pleasant. So we have a different way of managing things.
Yes. Yes.
You had asked Linda about the tie-in related to cycling and the Gateway Cup and that kind of thing. The Bommarito Audi West County Gateway Cup is the final in an 8-city series of a type of bicycle competitive racing called Criterium racing. If you've never heard of criterium racing, it is basically extremely exciting and dangerous and just thrilling to watch. But riders who are competitive will ride just inches away from one another, whipping around turns at 30 miles per hour and in a cluster and competing 10 times around a course. But here in St. Louis is the final in this 8-city series. So the best racers in the world come here to race and win the title of American Criterium Cup. My relationship with the Davis Phinney Foundation has grown over time, and I've never been a fundraiser. I've never been comfortable with that. But the way that our event, which was called Pedal in Place at the Race, came about is I wanted to do a fundraiser for the Davis Phinney Foundation. And one of the things the foundation does is we have 140 ambassadors across the nation and in some other places as well. They provide a lot of leadership training for us. And there's a leadership conference that we attend annually. And when I was there, I heard about folks that were doing impactful work elsewhere. And of course, organizations require money to provide the services. And I thought I wanted to do a fundraiser. And I went to the foundation and said, I think I want to do this. And they said, no, you don't. I said, no, I really do. They were like, no, you don't. Do you know what this involves? And I said, well, I'm a hard worker. I'm smart. I can do whatever.
Yes, yes.
And I said, I will. So a year ago, I decided I wanted to do something. And a lot of our fundraisers across the nation are related to cycling and bike rides. And I came up that recently, the Davis Phinney Foundation took over a program called Pedaling for Parkinson's, which based on research that shows by a man named Jay Alberts that stationary cycling, doing forced intense exercise, which is basically encouraging or making, if you will, someone exercise harder than they think they are capable to do.
Right.
And one of these things is stationary cycling was studied, and that if people did 3 days a week for 8 weeks, that's the study, high cadence or high speed stationary cycling, meaning the number of times that your legs went around in a circle was 90 revolutions per minute. That is very fast.
That's very fast.
Very fast. And it's the speed of that that helps with neuroplasticity. And we found that people that did that 3 days a week for 8 weeks reduced their symptoms of Parkinson's by 35%. That's huge. That's huge for a disease that is very difficult to manage. And people have fluctuations throughout the day and any day with their symptoms that can be extremely disabling, even for hours of the day.
Yes.
And to have something that's so simple to be able to do on a stationary bicycle. And it doesn't matter if you're on a recumbent bicycle. I mean, the study was done with people on a conventional stationary bicycle, but you could do a hand crank cycle. You could use your arms. The whole point is that you are engaging in cycling. We know this helps people with Parkinson's. So the tie-in, when I decided to do this event, I did some research in our community, and I found Mike Weiss, who owns Big Shark Bicycle Company, an event company. I knew he was the guy to go to about anything cycling. And originally I wanted to do a bike ride, just, hey, ride with us for the day, and the proceeds will go to benefit the Davis Phinney Foundation. And when I went to him as a community leader and said, I'd like to do something, and I see you're the guy, you're the cycling guy. And he said to me, he does a lot of events. He said, everybody on every charity, every business that wants to support a charity has a ride. There's hardly a day in the riding season, all the way from, spring to fall and through the summer, that there's even a day there isn't a ride already. And he said, he just looked right at me and said, that's boring. And you're not going to get a lot out of it. I was like, well, geez, so I realized he knew a lot. And I said, well, can you offer some mentorship or advice too? And I knew he had taken over this program, and I did some research. He's very charitable. He works with a lot of other charitable organizations, and I started calling the other organizations, non-Parkinson's related, that he works with, and I found out about this bicycle race. So I went back to him and I said, we'd like to have a stationary cycling event at your race. And he said, well, there's a soft day. It's kind of the last day of this 4-day race, and it's in a new community this year, and we could maybe do something with you there. He's actually a big fan of Davis Phinney. And
Awesome.
he offered this soft day, and I'm a persistent person. That's the word he uses for me. And I said, well, what's your busiest day? I said, I want to do something on the busiest day. So, we plan to do a stationary cycling event and develop this event where people come and ride bikes in teams. And we had relays of teams riding from morning until night, watching the professional racers zooming by. And it turned out to be very successful. And, Cycle Bar was a huge sponsor. Continuum, where Linda works, was a sponsor. And, as a community, I beat the street and got about 30 sponsors who are now excited. They appreciated what we were doing. And more than fundraising, though, the most important thing was introducing our community to who we are. Cycling was the tie-in, and it's a way to interact. And I'd love to talk more about who we are and what we do.
Listeners, there is so much more that Karen is going to share with us about how to live well with Parkinson's. So I hope that you will join me when we air part 2 of Living Well with Parkinson's. Thank you for joining me today. Please remember that this podcast is intended as guidance and not advice. Share this podcast with friends and family who are currently in crisis mode or with people who would like to start developing their own roadmap for aging in place. Listeners, if you would like a deeper dive into a topic discussed during a podcast, please subscribe to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers, where you will be able to access premium content. Or if you would like to suggest a topic for this podcast, please contact me at linda.agingstrategies@gmail.com. As always, I value the time you spend with me.